What's the point of being a good dad?
I got it, man. So this actually takes me back, and thank you for slightly prompting me um, before of like, hey, we're just going to talk about being a dad and how that matters and all these different things, right? But I think back to when we talked at your parents' house and we're sitting in the pool and just like talking ideas. That's where we got here, right? I think it starts with when you become a first parent and what people tell you is important or to be afraid of or to like prepare for. And really for the first child, and like you said, I have three, right? And it changes. I'll get to that part. But for that first kid, everyone's like, get ready to change a bunch of diapers, man. Hope you like doing that. And get ready to not sleep. Like, you better be ready to work and not sleep and hope you're okay with not sleeping. You know, these two very specific things. When in reality, that didn't really mean shit. And so I think back of
What do you mean it doesn't mean? What do you mean by that?
what I when I look back and what I would say to people or what I really wish the advice would have been is, hey man, number one, work on being a good partner, thinking about who you're with and taking care of them. And two, work on your identity and like who you think you are, how you find joy and pride. And remember that, you know, X years of your life, you're told to do all these different things. I got to go to school. I got to play sports. I got to get good. I got to get a job. I got to get money. Now I'm a parent and my job is to change diapers and stay up late. It's like, so, dealing with that mentally of the transition from I am a person, I'm an adult who has a job, I have interests, I have skills, to no, you got to take care of someone. You got a kid you got to take care of, and you got to be a dad. Um,
It's very humbling, right?
yeah, I'd say humbling, but also confusing. And you know, you ask what my purpose is there. Am I now just supposed to be a dad? Like give up all these things that you were and all these ambitions, and not just selfishly in that way, but like we are complex beings. We have all these different aspects. In my opinion, the joy is sharing them and kind of I'm a video game player. I play role playing games, other things, but
Same.
you're on a
Yeah.
quest, right?
Yeah.
You're putting together a team. Your babies are part of that team. They just need a little more help in the beginning. They're noobs, right? um, but eventually they get that experience. They're a meaningful part of the team, and now you got to play with them. And you're not just providing money and not just providing like the basic needs or the scoldings that you know, you brought up discipline and things, but like no, that we are together in this game. How do we coexist? How do we learn from each other? And you know, you grow and get to some goals in life and hit those mountains and like get the gold and all that.
Yeah. So where are you right now in regards? You said you had three kids, right?
Yeah.
For those who don't know, what ages of the kids? What are we talking about here?
Sure. So my oldest is 8. My middle is about to turn 6, and my youngest is 3.5.
So what do you do for a living?
Yeah. So currently, I'm a manager of a group that makes prototypes. We have machinists, we have welders, we have a glass blower. We have all sorts of trade skill people who make things for scientists. And before that, because I've only been doing that, I'm technically a division chief and director is my title. But before that, I was an electronics engineer. And my job was to work with a scientist who came to me and said, I want to make this. And I said, no, you cannot physically do that. That's not a real thing. But this is what you can do. And so that was the joy of my life, is bridging realities of things that can be manufactured, made, with what people are trying to push, like cutting edge science. So I'd do electrical design. I'm an electrical engineer by school. I would order parts, I'd solder boards, I would machine cases and boxes, and I would give them back a thing and say, here's an instrument, go do your work, let me know how it works. And they'd come back and say, that worked great, or this is totally messed up, like, let's do something different. Now I'm in charge of an organization that all of those people make it, right? But I think it's also important for me that before being an electronics engineer, I was a test engineer. And I think that portion
Test?
Test. Yeah. So I think that portion of my life really speaks to a lot of the ways that I parent and a lot of the ways that I think. So I actually have a trophy in my office that is the Berilla #1 Breaking Things Champion of the world. Yeah, the whole label's out there. It is a man with a dumbbell just doing shoulder shrugs right there. But if you ever get to see it, it's broken.
Great.
And so the first thing I did when I was handed this award is I held it over my head and the fan hit it and broke it. But more importantly, I was given that award because I broke everything in the place I previously worked. I also fixed everything in the place that I previously worked. And so I think a lot of parenting in life is the ability to recognize that things get broken all the time. You can't give up. It's actually pretty laughable a lot of the time. And you learn from it. You grow, you make things better. And that's the whole like engineering cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you, that's a great way that's a great take on life.
Yeah.
Do you give any credit to your parents?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, if you'd like to, I'd like just to, don't have to go into too much detail, but basically, you know, you said you got your education electrical engineering.
Mm-hmm.
So I have some stats here about STEM and
Yeah,
how
let's
it's
do it.
declining.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're aware.
It's tragic.
These are some stats here. So
Oh, God.
the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
Have a drink on this one.
I mean, in the good news is that the STEM occupations in the United States will grow 11% in the next 10 years. So it's a growing industry. So you have science, technology, engineering, and math.
Yep.
That's what STEM stands for, right? However, the math scores in the United States have been the worst they've ever been since 1970. In 2023, the math scores were the worst in the past 50 years.
Wow.
So I bring that up because you are in the STEM field. I remember some conversations we had at the beach about what you're doing with your kids outside of school. And so I'd love to kind of touch on that. And but let's go back real quick to how you were kind of brought up with math and science and how, you know, did your parents support that, or was it kind of did they let you do what you wanted to do and you just discovered the math and science, or how did that work? How did that
Sure.
manifest?
Yeah. So growing up, my dad was an engineer. He has worked for the same company for like 40 years, 50 years, basically doing the same thing. He supports the Navy, but I remember him coming home from conventions, work trips, whatever. He'd always bring home posters of cool military tech. And, you know, he'd talk about how different things work. And in my mind, at a young age, I remember connecting two things. One is that, wow, I have a bunch of toys that look like this. And also, these are real things that my dad, my grown-up adult dad, went to a conference and looked at, right? Or talked about.
When you say things, what are you referring to?
So you got submarines, you got tanks, you got communication things, satellites. Satellites actually ended up being a huge thing in my life because I love space. And so you get, you know, these concepts of, I'll say Hubble telescope pictures. If you look at it at a quick glance, your immediate reaction is typically like, what am I looking at? If you look at it for a long time, especially if you had a few beers or you're doing something else, like it's kind of scary. And then it gets kind of cool. It's like, wow, how do we get a picture of this? What is that? How do we get there? What do we think about this? How does this affect me? And those answers could be all from, this doesn't affect me, it's nothing. But at the same time, like, interesting, cool, to, wow, I want to blast off in a rocket ship, don't care if I come back. And that's where a lot of people are today, right? Is like, I want to go to Mars, don't care. And I wouldn't want to do that, but I definitely attribute the engineering mindset to kind of, I'll say, encouragement from my dad, or at least him making me realize that the things that we play with as kids, whether they're toys or they're basic principles of gears and other stuff, they matter in the real world. This isn't just a plaything. This thing exists for adults, and then it becomes not a toy, right? And that was a hard concept as a kid too. That when I got to high school and college, you realize, and it's like, oh wait, this thing that I thought was so cool as a kid is now really boring. I remember summers, I never got to go to camps, really. I would often go with her to do administrative work at church that she worked at. I hung out with the janitor who also fixed things, and he had a bunch of mice to feed the snakes, and like it was like this very weird dynamic, but very cool and interesting, like liberating thing of you want to go and learn something, you want to go connect with someone, here you go. And she always kept me in safe-ish environments. No, safe environments, not ish. Where
I think you said safe fish. I was like, what's that?
safe.
Yeah. Your mom kept you safe, but it sounds like she exposed you to
Exposure.
the world. And
Yeah.
and I think that's what a lot of parents are doing. And
Yeah.
what you can only do so much.
Yeah.
That's something that we try to do with ours is exposure, is make the world, if you can, right? Because things cost money,
Yeah.
traveling and all that. If you can, expand the world for your kid. That's what we're all trying to do, right? Expose them to as many things as possible and see what sticks, see what they like.
Absolutely.
So,
And actually, a quick comment to that, because we just did a Take Your Kid to Work Day. Actually, it wasn't that recent, coming up in, again, another. But I had about 8 tour groups of a bunch of kids come through. And I got halfway through and I said, guys, have you ever stopped and just pick an object, anything around you, your clothes, this machine, this microphone in front of me, and think, how was this made? And you get a lot of looks in the faces of just like blank stares. And then instantly they start like looking around and they pick an object and they just stare at it. And I want to say the exposure element there is really just allowing people, kids or adults, to open their minds. And so when I look at that microphone, I think of all the different materials that went into it, the different people who engineered or made that, the supply chain, that how it got here and assembled, the store that sold it, like, all these things. And that's pretty amazing how many people are involved in your life every day in different fields, right?
right.
So
Yeah, no, I think that's great, man. Now I'm like a little frozen because I'm like, oh man, like you're so right. And so did you think, it sounds like some of this is just genetic, like your dad was an engineer and he brought home all these cool things and probably talked to you about, how do you make this? How do you make that? And you're like, I don't know, that's cool. Let's figure it out. So some of it's nature, some of it's nurture. Going back to your kids, how do you enable your kids? What are you doing to expose them to the STEM field?
So, there's obvious direct things, right? You buy these kits, you get out your old Legos and you sit down and you do stuff. But I think, and for listeners too, my wife is a scientist. I am an engineer. Our household is just filled with constant whys and hows and nah, I think we can do something different. And I encourage all of those things. They are exhausting. They are frustrating. But interestingly enough, you will typically get to a point that a kid asks a question that you can't answer and you have to go and find out. And so I call them adventures. You can think them quests. You can think of art. But, if someone wants to learn something and you have no idea how, we have the internet now, right? I try and stay off it. I try and find answers myself. But you have the ability to really understand why and how. And we didn't have that as kids. My mom
Do you have any examples
Yeah.
of, because I think, I go to, yeah, I mean, I love talking with my daughter, right? Like, I
Yeah.
would assume you love the conversations with your
Yeah.
kids as they grow up. You're like, man, these conversations are more and more interesting and fun
Oh,
and
man.
amazing and
Yeah.
all the things, right? But a lot of times it's like, oh, why is the sky blue? And then you just like Google, why is the sky
Why is this
blue?
guy
And then
blue?
like you
Like,
kind of have an answer and then you go off. So like when you say like going on adventures
oh,
and
yeah.
not going on the internet, do you have any examples of like what maybe people could do to kind of not necessarily go right to the instant gratification that is the internet?
Yeah.
That's the instant answer every time now. I mean, it's all the information in the world is right there on your phone.
Yeah. So this is how I love to connect with people of different backgrounds, because I think this applies to everyone. It's not a STEM issue. It's an everyone thing. And I used to think back before kids of, I'm going to put together my doomsday team. I need my doctor. I need my engineer. I need my artist. I need my lumberjack. I got to get all these people. But so two answers directly to your question.
What do you? Sorry,
What's that?
Your doomsday team for what?
For doomsday.
You're doomsday prepper. Okay.
I am not. I'm not in any way, but for funsies, you play games, zombies, whatever, and it gets you in the mindset of like, internet shuts down, we run out of power, what do we do? And I think that poses fun questions. Do I know how to recreate things? Do I know how to? I'll take my life as I'm an engineer. I'm a communications engineer in some ways. I could probably make a radio. That would be helpful, right? And so I think like, what is my value to these teams? I'm out there, shopping for a job from all these tribes that have established and trying not to kill me. Sorry, I really went down,
I love that.
down the road of doomsday. But like, hey guys, I can do this for you. And I think everyone brings that skill. But two examples to your question of the daily I would say daily times when my kids ask questions and it takes me on this adventure. One is the common, I'm in the car and are we there yet? Yeah, kids want to know, are we there yet? But really they just want engagement. And so I will field the are we there yet for about 2 times. And then I ask, where are we going? And they'll half the time respond like, oh, we're going to the beach. Okay, what does the beach look like? And so they'll get into the details of whatever their mind is at that point. Oh, the beach is Barb's pool. Like, okay, Barb's pool could be anywhere. Could be Gaithersburg, could be elsewhere. But okay, what else is around there? How do you know that you're there? How long do you think it takes? How do we measure time? And so like you get people to think at things in different angles, and then it challenges you to think about it in similar or different ways. And so you could think of the are we there yet question as a simple, I am asking for the time. How many miles? How fast are you going? Like the very stupid, simple math. Or you could think of it as, where am I? Where am I going? Why am I excited to be there? And I think that really helps kids focus on the journey and destinations better than the very simple questions that I think traditional math may have relied on.
Sure.
And so I think that's how STEM needs to evolve and, really get kids interested, get adults interested and bring back stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like to keep it really simple. And I guess one way to look at this is you could it's not lazy parenting, but no, really, if you think about it, it's like stop answering all your kids' questions.
Yeah.
And flip it back
Let
to them.
them answer their questions.
Like, why do you think the sky is blue? You know?
So
see where they go with that and then chase that down. Right.
And that's going to be my second point to your question is, recently, I can't remember if it was my middle or my oldest, but they said, hey dad, let's put in slides everywhere. And instead of being like, whatever, kid, I was like, where from? Where are we going to? So, all right, these slides can go anywhere. I'm like, oh, so we're talking about portals? And they're like, yeah. Like, okay, how do these portals work? Like, well, portals aren't really real, right, Dad? I'm like, not really. You could work on it, but it'd take you a long time. So what about tubes? I'm like, yeah, tubes exist. Hamsters travel through. I'm like, oh yeah. All right, in these tubes, hands appear. I'm like, okay, how do we get to that? But cool. What do these hands do? Like, they hand you whatever you ask for. I'm like, okay. I asked for tube smashing equipment. I'm like, what? It's like, yeah, I asked for tube smashing equipment. I get it. What do I do now? I smash the tubes. And both my kids were like, no, the tube takes you out and says you can't be in the tubes anymore. But anyway, I give that story because it's amazing. And my son has brought this up at every dinner table. And he preps it with, hey, Dad, can we talk about the tubes again? And I have no idea the context of what he's actually asking or why he wants to talk, but I can tell that his gears are spinning and he's just like creatively interested in something. And I don't really care what that is. I just care that he wants to try and figure something out and wants me to be a part of it. And that loops in the whole table. You get a whole squad together. You figure out where these tubes go and what they actually do.
What would you say to somebody that isn't in your field that wants, so you have you and your wife who are very much into the whys, the hows, the how do we fix it? How do we break it? What are the rules? Just a bunch of whys. But somebody that isn't a scientist or a mathematician or an engineer, are there any sort of stepping stones or, I mean, I hate to even say this, but any like TV shows or like any sort of just starting points in getting your kids interested in any sort of like math or science or in that world of continually asking why?
It starts with, you could show them almost literally any show. So we stick to PBS Kids for most part, non-endorsement, but they typically involve a problem, a series of steps to fix that problem, and then a solution in the end. And sometimes not a solution. And you also need to teach that that is a thing too, right? But you take simple like Marvel comic shows, you get Spider-Man shows. He's got a problem. He's got interesting science and I'll say physics, dynamics behind it. You just got to start asking those questions of not, oh, why'd Spidey beat that guy up? Or, like, end of the day, Spider-Man wins. That's not the point. How far can Spider-Man shoot his webs? How strong are they? This beast, I'll pick Thor. Thor can break through spider webs, right? Why can Thor? Because he's stronger. How stronger?
He's got lightning too.
He's got lightning. He's got hammers. So hammers can defeat different things, but if you wrap him up, he's done. You ever try to be wrapped up? Let's try that. I'll put you in a blanket.
Saran wrap.
I'll put you in a blanket burrito.
Yeah.
And you get all these interesting thoughts of like, well, why can't I do this? You can get that anywhere. And to the same question of look around you every day and just pick one object. How did this get here? How is this made? How does this exist? And just try and think about it for 2-3 minutes. That's my suggestion. Kind of a step further too is what drives you? What are you interested in? Because STEM isn't about math. It isn't about science and technology and engineering. Like, it's not about books or being trained or being smart, getting PhDs. It's about none of that. It's about figuring out what you want to do and making a process, finding the steps to get there, and involving the people who can help you get there, right? It's problem solving. And problem solving applies to everything. Getting back to kind of parenting aspect of this, connecting with people in our I'm a millennial, self-hating millennial, that our generation and younger are challenged with that sometimes. COVID certainly didn't help. I think especially men in year my age during COVID, we have a problem connecting with each other. And every time I see you, because we hang out at the beach sometimes, like, I don't think a beat skipped, but I think realistically, I should be trying to hang out with you more often. I should be trying to connect with people and really have these conversations, work together, build cool things, do cool stuff. Because in this journey of life, it's not about the things you make or the things you do, but we're all in it together. And yeah, I really don't know where I'm going with this ramble other than help each other, be with each other, and
Yeah, sure, man. Well, I
yeah,
got a couple questions.
yeah.
Let me just steer us back in the
Thank you,
direction here.
thank you.
Sorry, man. I appreciate you opening up and stuff.
Every day.
I like to say a bad dad is a good dad. So if you're feeling like, oh, I'm not doing this right, or if you're second guessing maybe something that happens, that means you're a good dad. Because a bad dad is just going to do whatever they want and not have any regards to your kids' feelings or thoughts or how you're affecting them. If you're just narcissistic and you're just like my way or the highway type thinking, I don't think that's good for anyone.
Yeah, and maybe if I can rephrase it and how I hear it too. Bad dads, the way you explained it, are really just caring dads. The reason you think that you're bad is because you wish you did different. You care enough about this being you brought into existence, right? Their future, their current, their everything, that to reflect upon your actions and wish you did different. And regrets, remorse is something that everyone feels, not just parents. But I think I agree. I don't think, I definitely agree that I fuck up every day. And I have a friend who joined the Navy. He's a navigation expert, and he said their prayer every day was, "Please, Lord, don't let me fuck up today." every day, they'd step out to their planes, they'd say their little prayer, they'd get in. But now that I have kids, that's just not real. That can't be. And so I agree. The concept of bad dads is really a dad who wishes he did better, and tries to do better. I think that's a crucial part there. And really what I think bad you mean is cruel. A cruel dad is a bad dad. And so bad dads are caring, cruel dads are bad. There are plenty of men out there that are great to their kids. There are plenty of men out there who are horrible to their kids. And it breaks my heart every time, because that is our responsibility. We made a choice, right? We had fun. Sometimes planned, sometimes not, but we love our kids. We wanted our kids. And every time I break down and I'm yelling, or I have to, bring them into a room, and just have some alone time. And again, it takes me to like talking it out, but eventually that's a very frustrating experience, right? My kids will start to hit me and kick me, and it's a hard place to be in as a man, and say, no, like, I need to teach my children how to be good people. I need to care about them. I need to keep trying and doing better. As much as they either push my buttons, poke me, do the things I don't want them to do, or even in a response to me trying to be a kind, calm mediator, they're just wailing on me, right? You have to be the bigger, stronger person. And I think a lot of times when I start to lose it, one of two things. One, I can walk away because I have a good, strong partner, good, strong partnership. Love Erica. Going back to the beginning here, we figured out how to balance out each other and to work with each other, to care about each other. And that has done wonders, amazing things for how we parent and our kids, I think. But I can walk away. I can ask her to step in, or I can just take a breath and say, this little being, this little human is just trying to be independent, trying to live and do what he wants to do. And it's not what you want him to do at this time. Well, guess what, man? I'm constantly doing things that other people probably wanted me to do something different. Do they yell at me? Do they hit me? Do they no, we coexist. We treat each other kindly. We talk, we collaborate, we work it out.
At least for me, I feel like most parents just want their kids to have manners, to be polite to people, to be kind, to say please and thank you, all the things. But sometimes at home, it feels like they're just feral animals, right?
Sure.
But then you hear, hopefully you hear from your kid's teacher or whoever that they behave really well. So it's kind of hard to gauge like where your kid stands with like their behavior at home versus public. And I think if you just try your best and you keep consistent with your messaging, everything's going to turn out fine and they're going to be good people. I mean, do you feel the same way, or what is it like having the 3 kids just like?
Oh man. Yeah. So, I got a bunch of answers to that. I'll start with simple psychology or how I understand it, that how kids react in their safe places and out in public, right? Where they feel like they can't be themselves, or they have cautions, they have rules, they're polite, all these things. So you have a kid that goes to daycare or school, they take their training, I'll say, their upbringing, their environment, and they go out in the real world and they kind of are self-navigating. They're little humans at that point, right? And they bottle up their emotions and they don't react and they hold back, and they come home, they explode. And so I think in some ways you should smile and be proud of yourself if that's what's going on. If your kid's an animal, a feral animal at home, that shows that they did an amazing job outside in the real world of being good, civilized people, right? And when they get so wild at home, some of that's okay and some of that's not. And kind of parsing that out is how you guide them into being really well-rounded people. I will point to my oldest, who's 8 right now, and she is there. She has made it to the point that she goes out in the real world. She doesn't take shit, that's for sure, but she behaves very kindly. She treats people kindly. She helps people. She collaborates. She gets things done. And she's the one who wants to be a teacher, right? She loves interacting with other people and helping them and doing things together. When she gets home, I'd say for the most part, she is that same similar person. And not because she doesn't feel safe. It's because she realizes that it's okay to just be this way all the time. Like I can be cool. I can be calm. I can be the Fonz. And that's what I used to say to her as a baby. Like, be cool, man. Be cool. Who's cool? The Fonz. And she'll never get that because she'll never watch that show.
Was that from
Happy Days?
Happy Days.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you get to a point where you recognize that exploding, being a jerk, kicking and hitting, not working with people, they hold you back. And once you make that realization, you're really just like, holy shit, the things I can do. If I am calm and I listen and I do the things that I'm asked, because I don't ask my kids for all that much. I ask that they wake up, they get dressed, Ben feeds his frogs, right? But otherwise, like, keep playing. So you do the things that I ask, you can do what you want. And if you ask me for things, wow, you've opened up my morning that I'm not screaming at you. I'm not telling you to take a bath 5, 10, 30 times. Like, we just have so much more time to have fun. And I have so much more patience and time as a dad that I can do better things for you. And again, my oldest recognizes that now. So like, she'll do the things that I ask her to so that she gets more out of life. And I think, you asked about having 3. That is certainly a compounded challenge. Because
so you have 3 different kids.
Yeah.
3 different personalities.
Yep.
3 different stages.
Yeah.
So it must be hard to be like talk and have these conversations with your oldest about, hey, if you cooperate, that gives us more free time. More free time means more fun things.
Yep.
Let's all just be happy, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you go to your toddler.
My toddler.
And you're like, okay, so there's no logic here. How do I how do I deal with this? And they're also just different. I mean,
Yeah, they're different people. Everyone's different too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say that's a massive challenge for me, and I would assume parents of any multiple children's, that I do well, I think most people probably do, teaching to the oldest. And so to some effect, my middle gets dragged up because I'm trying to do cool things with her. He wants to do cool things too. And so if you can hang, you can come with us. If you can't, you can't. And that's going to push the younger kids to do bigger things. But at the same time, you have to respect that they're not the 8-year-old. He is just a 5, almost 6-year-old. And so I'm challenged with that for sure from a patient standpoint. But like, I think that makes better people. If you watch the Michael Jordan documentary, his older brother was the better basketball player, right? But he wouldn't give up. He saw his older brother doing that and he said, I'm going to be better than you. I'm going to be the best. And so he practiced all night long. He gave it the heart, and he's the GOAT, man. And so I think, the story's still out there if that applies to 3 or 4 or 17. But I think each one is being, what's the phrase, bootstrapped, pulled up
Sure.
by the olders, which in some cases works amazingly. I have my 3-year-old who potty trained herself, refused to let me help. She does so many things by herself. She's so independent, but she's 3. And so when she breaks down because I don't let her bring 6 stuffies to school this morning, yeah, I have to get it. That's what she wants to do. But when she goes to the bathroom, when she puts her shoes on, when she washes her hands better than the other 2, but more importantly, she's out there. We live in the woods. We have a bunch of rocks of different kinds, gypsum and other things. The kids have hammers. The kids go outside and they hammer rocks and see what's inside. That 3-year-old has a hammer, and I watch her, and I try and put her glasses on and all, right? But like, she hangs.
Mm-hmm.
And
that must be a beautiful thing to watch your other kids. Obviously you're in charge, but they're kind of raising her.
Yeah.
Not raising her. That's maybe the wrong word, but the influence that your siblings have on you, especially your older siblings. I mean, there's almost nothing more powerful than seeing somebody that's a kid, that's your brother or sister.
And you pointed it to a word or statement, expression that I actually, I disagree with, only for the reason I think it's not fair, is that older siblings should not be raising younger siblings, right? And I'm not saying anything against what you said. I'm just saying concept in general.
It's cool, man.
No, man, like,
I'm just kidding.
You only got one kid, so you're speaking figuratively anyway, right? So, but it, in my opinion, is wrong to expect the olders to watch the youngers or to teach the youngers to do that. If they can, amazing. If you can teach them at least to coexist and collaborate, even better. If they do it spontaneously and enjoy it, you found a miracle child. Which I honestly think my older, she will be an amazing teacher someday. Whether that's actually teaching, or in some other field, just being a good,
sure,
helper. But
to be more specific,
yeah.
I think just generally speaking, kids always look up to older kids.
Yeah.
You see it in neighborhoods.
Yeah.
I see it with my daughter and the older kids in the neighborhood. Like the oldest kid is kind of, for the most part, in charge.
Yeah.
And she's kind of like leading the play.
But I think that's a misconception by parents, and especially our parents, older generations, that, okay, I had a bunch of kids. They watched each other. I had to go to work. That is a thing that happened, right? My family is fortunate enough that that's not exactly our dynamic, right? We don't have to have our oldest watch our middle 2 or younger because we can't be there. And so relying on her to do that is just stressing her the fuck out. And I can tell you this from experience. I've seen her, I've seen I'll say other people in my life expect that from her, or expect that from other kids, that they are now in charge of the other ones. The adults all hang out together. You have this animal kingdom of children that the oldest is in charge. And I say no. One, engage with your kids. That's one staple of me, that I will always be involved as much as I can while also being involved with the adults. And I think that's my challenge of balance too, of honing myself and also honing my dadship.
So yeah, it sounds like it's important for parents to be wary about how they treat their oldest child, and what they expect from them.
Yeah.
And maybe to not rely in any way, shape, or form for them to like raise the younger kids, right?
And I would say that almost in a different way, in my mind, is that teach kids to work together, to be together, and help each other. Because you will be shocked at how often the middle kids can organize just as well as the old ones. They're bigger, they're stronger, they're faster, but they're also burdened with, I am the oldest. I have this pressure on me. I'm trying to learn these things. I'm trying to do all this stuff, and I'm the trailblazer. There's no one in front of me. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. And so they're stressed by social, emotional, math, science, like all the subjects, right? Whereas the middle one can see clearly sometimes. I have someone in front of me. Unfortunately, I have someone behind me. I know what general direction to go to. I know what younger and less mature looks like. Maybe I can pick a solution that's great for all. And so I'm not advocating for the middle to be in charge either. I'm just saying, if you can teach kids to engage with each other in productive ways, to really, I keep using this word, collaborate, work together, care about each other, then you don't have to worry about who's in charge. You're just doing, you're going, you're surfing, right? You're riding waves. And in some ways, you don't have any objective. You're just existing, and you're playing different games, you're doing different activities, but you're all together. And again, that's what really strikes my core, is like, whatever you're doing, do it together. Be kind, be thoughtful, love each other. So,
do you subscribe to the idea that if you are into math and science and technology, that you're not into people?
No, you just have groups of people. You have people being people. And I'm a rugby player. I played rugby in high school and college. And am I a jock? Am I a bruiser who's just going out to kill people and, I want to bash stuff up? No. Am I a person who focuses on math all day, every day, and that's all I do? No. I'm actually kind of a social butterfly, right? And so what drives me is engagement. You can tell that from the theme of this, right? I want people to meet each other, to be together, and go back to my doomsday team, right? I don't want the same people repeated. Actually, in some ways, like, I don't need you anymore, right? I want those creative differences because it breeds the best results. You have the same people thinking the same thing for a long time, and that is just a recipe for disaster is the wrong word, but you're going nowhere. And so I think this concept of, oh, you like math and I like sports, let's never meet, is crazy. I played sports. I like math. I was friends with all different sides of the aisle, the spectrum. And I think breaking down barriers in that way is really important.
Are you having conversations like this with your kids at all yet? Or?
Oh, for sure. And actually, we didn't even get to the point that my kids, my two olders, are in public school. They're in a dual immersion program. And so they spend half of their day in Spanish and half of their day in English. And it's not like Spanish class that you and I had. It is, you get math and science and some other subject in the first part of the day. Your first part of the day is all in Spanish. There is no English. And so you gotta learn real quick, or at least see it from the other side too, of you have people who speak different languages, who like different things. Take it out of the language portion and think of just different ways of thinking. And so I think analytically, you think creatively. Let's put each other in the same room and force you to think the opposite way. And then the rest of the day, force me to think your way and see how that results. And I see it in my son who's in kindergarten. And man, his development is just crazy. I see it in my daughter almost even more, that she is learning math in Spanish. And so that isn't learning math. That is learning how to solve problems in a language that's not your own, not your, main speaking. And so the fact that she is just crushing it in math there is one thing. Another thing is how people teach today. You and I were raised on times tables, or basically you get taught one way of doing things, and then you elevate, you escalate, right? I learn addition in 1 digit. I start learning 2, 3, 4, and then like, okay, enough addition. Let's learn subtraction. Let's learn multiplication. Let's do that. The kids, my kids, are learning to do the same problem in 5 different methodologies. And so instead of going upwards in a problem difficulty, they're learning all these different methods of tackling the same problem. And part of that is really frustrating. And it's
This is in public school?
Mm-hmm. And this is really frustrating.
Where? In Gaithersburg?
Mm-hmm.
Which schools? What school is this?
Am I allowed to say?
Nobody cares. No,
Well,
there's like
yeah, no, it's all good. So,
Yeah.
so they go to Brown Station, but I'm pretty
Okay.
sure this is curriculum across the boards.
Yeah. It's a public school, so like
It's how they teach these days.
because you hear a lot of complaints. Like I've
Mm-hmm.
heard a lot of complaints about like public school being, you have to learn X, Y, and Z these certain ways, and some kids maybe don't want to learn a certain way and they need to learn a different way. So it's kind of the ongoing debate with public school versus, let's say, private, where everything's more individualized.
And so you break this down to actually a thought that I came into today with, is that my kids are learning how to solve the same problem 5 different ways. What they're actually learning is how to deal with different ways of solving the same problem. And so they're learning how to communicate and deal with other people who don't think the same way. And so I had beef to your first statistic of our math scores in this country right now are the lowest that they've been in 50 years. That's a problem. What is not a problem is that people are learning different methodologies and how to do things. You need a balance there, right? But I recently went into my parent-teacher conference for my daughter, and I will say that in kindergarten, she was doing multiplication. She's in 2nd grade now, and she's been focused on addition and subtraction at like large numbers, but obviously like a step backwards, to traditional, the way that we were raised. And I repeatedly asked, I was like, hey, she's really good at math. What are you doing to challenge her? And what I kept getting back is half of their day is spent in a language that isn't their own. They are challenged. They're just challenged in different ways. And so you are setting people up. You're setting children up to understand down the road in life how to deal with very complex situations. I have 5 different variables coming into this room. I got another 10 on the outside, all different ways of thinking. But now that I've seen the same problem different ways, you ever read Ender's Game or see the movie? It's about a kid who can really visualize and see strategy, just like in his mind. And so you basically creating kids with this opportunity, this ability to see the world a different way. And the shame that we as parents are trying to do is mold that skill and those things that they're learning right now back into the way that we were taught. And so I came in fired up being like, man, I wish that she was doing multiplication right now, send her to third grade, fifth grade. But realistically, what he was trying to explain is your daughter is extremely gifted. She is challenged in so many other ways. Let this be. And when you get to the point that you need to do algebra, when you need to do calculus, when you need to get beyond, she has this toolbox that is just filled with different ways to solve a problem that she will figure it out like that. Whereas when I was challenged to solve problems, I failed Calc 3 twice because I only knew how to do things one way, and my one way wasn't working. And so I went to Lehigh University, great school, great engineers. The math department is separate from the engineering, and those mathematicians are fucking brilliant and horrible to engineers. I repeated almost every math class that I took because I could not think in the ways that they wanted me to think. And I was never taught different strategies. When my first line fails, what do? And fortunately, I didn't go home and cry. I didn't quit. I almost failed out. That was a thing. But I stuck with it. I said to my parents, engineering is who I am. It's what I want to do. I believe in me. I know you do too. Let me keep trying. And so I graduated. I went straight from college into the workforce. Workforce paid for me to get a master's. It's been onwards and upwards ever since. So I really think that again, I'm 37. I'll just flat out say this for the podcast, right? 37 and ups for sure. We think that we need to drive our kids in these specific directions, teach them as much math as fast as possible, teach them as much everything as much as possible, when really we just need to build the framework for them to learn, because they can learn infinitely faster than we can teach. And I think that's every generation down one, right?
We're all on our paths, but I think it's a very healthy way to think about public school. It's something that my wife and I wrestle with. It's something that a lot of people think about. And it's very easy to go into a meeting like you just did and said, hey, my kid is smarter than this. So, and you know what I mean? And it makes sense. You're like, you're not challenging my kid. I want my kid to be challenged. I want my kid to soar into outer space with intelligence.
And to be clear, that is kind of what I did. and as a good dad that I am, I self-reflected on it and was like, shit, that teacher is awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that he listened to me and continues to be an awesome teacher and really set these kids up for success in a very dynamic and changing and cool world where these kids really can do great things and they don't need to be locked into the way that we did them. So,
yeah, that's a great perspective, man. I mean, because I think everyone I talk to our age has the same complaints. Yeah. And it's cool to see you on the other side of it. We haven't entered it yet, right? Our daughter's only 4. We're still at this Montessori school, which we have nothing but good things to say. She's really so independent and does all these things. She's so great. Everyone thinks their kid is great, right?
Yeah.
But we haven't got into the public school realm.
Sure.
Even if it's a private school, I think it's cool to learn how to solve the same problem in different ways. I don't know the specifics of that, but that sounds like a great skill rather than learning more complex problems. Why don't we just focus on
different ways to solve them.
Ways. Yeah. Because like you said at the beginning and through this whole podcast, it's been, why is that? How did that get here? There are 50 things that had to happen before that beer could get on this table.
Yeah. It's a good beer.
Know? It's a good beer. On that note,
how do good things get here?
Yeah. Let me take a piss. I'm going to grab one more and then we'll probably wrap up here.
Sounds great, man. Thank you. Why do this? And this goes back to, my comment about COVID times and connecting and how we suck at connecting with each other, right? And I don't mean me and you. I mean,
no, I get it. I suck at connecting.
Men in lots of ways. Women seem to be better at it, but I'm sure they still have their problems too, right? But like talking things out in general, I mean this with kids, I mean this with adults, being able to connect and talk to each other and just relate, discuss things. Like that's what people used to do, right? You sit around the fire and shoot the shit.
Right.
But you build ideas and the next day you go and do something because you had that conversation. And so the way we process our problems, our joys, our everythings is by a lot of times saying them out loud. And so I really appreciate I'm really grateful for this opportunity to say my feelings out loud. And just really thank you. Like, I think it's really cool.
Yeah, man.
So I really hope that anyone listens to this, but I hope that some people listening to this take you up on opportunities to talk about whatever you got to talk about. Because I guarantee that there are many, many interesting topics that I would love to hear that would help me in my life and my doomsday squad. Just understand like what problems are you having out there? How do you think about them? Where does your angle on how to deal with this? So
yeah.
yeah.
Well, thanks, man. I mean, that's really when people ask like, oh, well, you started a podcast. People will ask what's your podcast about? And, it really is about connection. Like you said, I feel like we're more connected, but actually at the same time, we're the least we've ever been connected as like a society, not to get too woo woo.
No,
but I really feel that way. And it turns out that most people are very connected to their kids and want to talk about their kids, myself included. So that's why a lot of this has become kind of a parenting vlog for parenting podcast, whatever you want to call it. I can tell you're about to say something.
I am, because I really want to poke at that connecting aspect because again, I'll point to generations. I hate to keep doing this, but we live in an age where we feel like connecting is posting a shit ton of pictures or being on socials with each other. And interestingly, the way you just described this, I'm really proud of my kids. I got shit tons of pictures of my kids. Oh man, I'm doing the same thing again. I'm not on socials really that much, but
well, hold on. There's a difference between taking pictures and videos of your kids because you're like
and sharing them, yeah,
and sharing them to your friends, not necessarily for the entire world to see. Which there's nothing wrong with because I get it. You're so happy. You're so proud. You want to go to the top of a mountain and be like, I love these kids so much. Look how great they are. Like, I understand it.
But that's the unfortunate, the weight that's in placed upon us as parents or people in society is you are not a good parent if you don't have these iconic pictures of you and your kids being happy. Almost every picture on my wall has one of my 3 kids screaming and crying. And we look at that and we're like, oh man, yeah, you're having a bad day. Like,
wait, so you have pictures on your walls of maybe not necessarily happy moments?
100%.
I like that.
100%.
I might have to steal that idea.
And you got to embrace that.
Yeah.
Because when you got that many people in your life, you should just be proud you got that many people together, right? You can't all smile at the same time. And I'm not going to take 1,000 pictures. I'm not going to Photoshop it. That's not real life. And I think we are setting ourselves up for this scenario to happen. Adults look for this external validation or this connection that's constant, right? I came in here and I told you, like, I always feel connected with you. You could text me after 3 years of not talking to me and I'm gonna pick it right up. And that's because I don't see the constant connection as the necessary thing here. What's important is that you care enough to reach out and be with me. And I'm just honored that other people want to connect, right? And I think if we all did that a little bit better, if we didn't look for the constant poking, handshakes, high fives, and I'm not saying those aren't great, right? But if we just existed together and reconnected in a way that wasn't this celebratory thing, it was just a, hey man, I'm back here. I'm with you. Like, let's hang. I think we would do a lot better as a society. And especially as parents, because you see movies, you see Insta reels, you see all this shit online, perfect parents, happy kids all the time. or the opposite. You have parents that are broken down and venting, which is an important step too, but there's no in between. There's no like,
Things are okay.
Yeah.
We had a good day yesterday and we had a bad day today. Right?
Guess what, man? All of us are in it like that. And that's cool. That's okay. For me, I don't like to publish it all the time. That's just who I am, because I am trying to focus on staying connected, staying relevant, staying with it. And I feel like if I'm distracted by phones or like pictures or things, I'm not living it. And so
have you had any of these? Probably not yet, but have you thought about how these conversations are going to go, or are you just going to feel it out along the way when let's say your oldest gets into those middle school years or high school? And I mean, I guess that's something that we're all looking at each other like, hey, maybe we shouldn't do this phone thing. Like, you see how we're all addicted to the dopamine hits from the phone scrolling, right? So a child's brain, who disagrees with that?
Oh, yeah.
Everyone I talk to is like, yeah, phones are a terrible idea. It's like, okay, then who the fuck is sending their kids to school with a phone or a watch? They're second, third grade.
Yeah. I'm going to chuck you this bone real quick, because holiday time, I got these STEM kits for my kids. And so my oldest got a Morse code that she like assembled the circuit and put it together. She had a transmitter receiver, and she got addicted to that real quick. So it's just the ability to communicate that we get addicted to, right? We want the connection. But
I think if okay, so like
we'll go a step. I understand what you're saying.
I think I do have to temper myself, because I'm like, look, the reality is this is the world we live in.
Mm-hmm.
So how much do you want to hinder your kid from experiencing what they want? I think as long as you go into those middle school years, or whenever they are, puberty, when you really want that phone and the social media, I think you just need to have a conversation, almost like sex or anything that kind of, once you become a young adult, the dangers of social media, and everything that comes with it, and the porn and everything that the internet has.
To me, it comes to a place of just explaining what's going on around you, what these things are for, and really making people comfortable in both being themselves and not being driven by others, technology, whatever. And so you talk about, I'll pick porn. That was the last word you said. It's the most exciting and sexy, right?
I read a stat the other day, 25% of all internet traffic
and
is naked,
and that's the
people.
That's the internet, the thing that people use 100% all the time, every day.
25%, man, it's crazy.
And just providing this false narrative of what sex and life really is. And sex workers, good on them, good, people that do these things, cool. But at the same time, we're training ourselves for this idea that isn't real. And I think that's a interesting explanation to anyone, adult or kid, is like, okay, you look at porn, you enjoy yourself, whatever, you do that for self-gratification. Like, are you really training your mind to think that that's real? Are you training your mind to think this is how it should be? Or are you just, getting a quick jolly and like, whatever? Take that to other things, like, and I realize in that statement, I'm about to relate porn to other non-porn things. It's a hard jump to go to. But most importantly, it's how our minds work, is that the more things we see in the same way, the more we assume that that's how reality is. And so if we see everyone being happy all the time, we assume everyone is happy all the time. We see dudes with 12-inch dicks going to it for 45 minutes. We get real sad because that's not what I'm doing, right? Good on you. But like, see how I did that? That's an engineer right there.
How do I communicate this? Yeah, man.
But like, that is what we need to communicate, is realism of, okay, you want to talk to your friends, you want to be connected with people. That's awesome. How do we do this in a healthy way? And that's why, again, I hate that I keep harping on the porn side of this, but like, sex workers exist for a reason. We feel excited when we see naked people, right? We don't know how to comprehend it. It makes us feel fun and young and interesting. And so like, you can't say that's all bad. But you do
But you also have to think, like, think to your son, for example.
yeah.
If he ends up being into girls, he might be 12, 13 years old, and he might get on the internet and see more naked women than the most powerful king 300 years ago.
Sure.
In one day.
And guess what?
He'll see more naked women than let's say the most powerful man in the world.
And that most powerful sultan back in the day, he also had sex for an average of 3 minutes. his dick size was the same as ours. Like, again, it's the realities.
Yeah.
And right. So like, you get into AI and virtual realities and the things that the technologies we're dealing with these days, the future that our kids will be heavily into. And it's a grounding that we need to offer them of, yes, these things exist. Yes, you can use them to benefit you. But no, they cannot be your entire world. They cannot be your reality. They are not real. And I think it's a very powerful thing to try and teach your kids in a bunch of different areas. Of when I was young and got a phone, I started working when I was 13. And so I got a phone so I could get a ride home, right? But I started texting people all day, all night, because that's the first thing you do. And so you get into essentially what was like a AIM problem, that you're living in chat rooms, you're living in text messages, and that's not reality. Talk to people, right? And millennials have a huge problem talking to people. You realize you called me, I hung up immediately and texted you, right? Shit, I did this. But
wait, were you not in a meeting?
I wasn't in a meeting.
Oh, okay.
It was real. It was all in the good.
Okay.
But really, like, every generation is offered, and this is a flowing thing, offered the technology of that generation and how they use it, and how they take it and move us forward as people. Then we'll build for the next generation. But it's again, I'll use the word grounding, of how do I use this tool, this feature, this technology, this science that is neither good nor bad, to do something good for the world, something that makes me happy, something that makes money, and then on the flip side doesn't hurt someone, that doesn't cause people to feel bad or wrong or to do bad things. Many of the technologies that are invented then end up warped into defense. They get turned into weapons. And you could say that all of these things that you said, porn, social media, technologies, AI, are turned into weapons. And there's many movies that make this quote of, technology is neither inherently evil nor good. It is in the hands of the people that use it. And so it is our job as parents and people in the world to use the technology for good, and make sure that others do too. Like, we are our own guardians. You can't keep looking for other people to regulate you or tell you what to do or say you can't do that. And I just ran into this with my daughter. I think we said it this morning, but being good, being honest, is making the choice when no one else is looking. And so she wanted to do something. She's got 2 friends, and she wanted to say to one friend that, oh no, this play date's canceled, and then have it with the other one so they could be by themselves. And it started with, well, what if she finds out? And the next statement was, doesn't matter if she finds out. Doing the right thing right there is picking, you include them regardless if she would find out or not. And I'm not saying she did right or wrong, but it's making the choice regardless of if you get burned by the outcome or not. And so I think raising children to make decisions in ways that I don't know, that they can.
So to be clear, you're saying that initially your daughter had a play date with 3 total kids, and then she was like, I just don't want the one kid. And you're saying
so,
go ahead and do it.
No,
You're saying include her.
I'm saying definitely include her. So her and 2 friends, right?
Yeah.
She told the one friend it was canceled, so she could be with this other one.
I get that.
And we said, no, like you can't do that. That's cruel. That's mean, right? And so you need to think about this other person, whether or not she would hear about it, see it, understand that it happened. And so I realized after saying that, she totally got it. It was like, oh man, yeah. If I make a decision, regardless if this person finds out or not, I'm not okay with that. And so she guided to the right step there. I think we need to instill that in our kids, that do the right thing regardless if someone's looking or not, or if they'll find out or not. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah. But what if your kid doesn't like the other kid? What if they're like, oh, I just don't like that person?
Well, that's a totally different thing. And that's actually where this conversation started, is this friend touches everything. That was the exact phrase that I got. She touches everything. She's always talking. I'm like, oh, did you tell her that? Yeah, we yelled at her. We were like, stop talking. Stop touching my stuff. I was like, did you try and explain to her like what actually you're feeling? Like, oh, no. And so, my older told me, he was like, can you pretend to be this friend? I said, sure. I said, I don't like it when you touch my stuff. Stop touching my stuff. I'm like, okay. Why don't you like it? I like to touch things. That's how I learn. That's what I like to do. So, well, this is really important to me. I don't want you to touch that. I'm like, well, can I touch that? I said, sure. I'm like, there you go. And so in trying to like really talk through the scenario of how you're feeling and what's really going on, what's the problem? Tell that to someone, explain to them, this thing that you're doing really bothers me. And it bothers me because this. And if you can work on this, I'd appreciate it. I'm not going to expect you to be better tomorrow. No one's perfect, but like, this is what's upsetting me. Not the whole thing. Not that you touch everything. It's that I really love this beer in front of me, and I don't want you to touch it. I will get you your own.
Yeah. I think some of us can relate to that. No, I think that's a great kind of I'll throw that one back in the bank. Or I'll what am I trying to say? That's a great point. We're dealing with that right now. Just
oh yeah, at 4.
Oh young. Boy, yeah. Just the whole I don't like you, I don't like her, I don't like things. It's tough, man. It's really tough. But I think if you can teach your kid to understand, okay, so why don't I like them?
Yeah.
Oh, it's because they're always bumping into me or stepping on my feet or talking too much. That's a hard one, though. Like, hey, Susie, stop talking. It's like, that's kind of harsh, right?
But again, let's talk this out.
Yeah.
Why don't you like it when I talk over you? I'm just going to talk over your response. It's because you have something to say. You want to talk too, and you feel like you aren't being heard. And so that is a very real thing that can be fixed, and the other person can definitely relate to. You felt a time when you didn't feel heard, and so now I understand why this is a problem, and I can fix it. But if I don't like you touching my things because you can't touch things because your fingers are gross, that's not something you can fix. And that's also not a real problem. So
right. Well, I don't care if you talk over me. That was hard for me to role play there because I'm like,
that's okay. That's okay.
I mean, if it was all the time, I'd be like, but dude, I mean, I think I really appreciate you coming over, man. I think it's been a great time. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'm gonna just say, I think your kids are lucky to have you. I think Erica, your wife, is. Yeah, I might as well just shower you in compliments. Man.
I don't do very well with that. So
nobody does. It's interesting. I've looked into this, and it's like there's a certain level of compliment that like people are comfortable with, and
Yeah.
very quickly you're like, okay, just enough. Stop complimenting me.
Well,
'cause
I will
I'm not
throw
that
back
great.
to you. I would gladly put you on my doomsday team, and I really appreciate this opportunity. And like,
Well,
no, it's
I'm gonna
all
call
good,
you
man.
out there. What would I be on your doomsday team?
You?
Yeah,
You're a team lead right there.
team lead.
You can connect people.
I can. I'll talk to anyone. I'll talk to the enemy tribe.
There you go.
Leader.
Yeah.
And be like, hey, you guys got some corn? We got some bread.
We got some something.
We got some. What were you talking? We got some aluminum. No,
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
We make some cans.
Yeah, dude. Well, yeah. Thanks again, man. I hope to see you soon. If I don't, we'll see you in the Outer Banks.
And I will do you one more. We will pick it up right wherever we left it. Right. So
Absolutely, man.
thank you, sir.
Thanks, man.
All right.